Welcome to This Must Be the Place. I'm your host, Alo Galinsky. Each week, I'll uncover what's happening in Sonoma County, diving into the hidden gems and quirky corners. I'll be interviewing some of our local legends, as well as people you didn't know you need to know, all through the eyes of a craft beer enthusiast living in wine country. Join me as we explore one sip, one story, and one adventure at a time, and together we'll find out why this must be the place. Today, we are joined by Marilyn Nagel, an award-winning global thought leader, former chief diversity officer at Cisco, and the executive producer of TEDx Sonoma County. Marilyn is here to preview the 14th annual TEDx Sonoma County event taking place on March 7th, 2026 at the Jackson Theater in Santa Rosa. This year's theme, Mindshift, Power of Perspective, creates a space for bold ideas on how our worldview, from the psychology of perception to the influence of algorithms, shapes the future. The program features a diverse lineup, including NBA champion Festus Ezeli, CEO Mauricio Umansky, and Nichole Warwick, with experts unpacking everything from the evolution of internet culture to navigating change in an unpredictable world. All that being said, I'm excited to welcome Marilyn Nagel to chat with me today. Welcome, Marilyn.
Thank you. It's delightful to be here with you.
This TEDx programming seems really fascinating. And as somebody who's never seen a TED Talk before, I may just have to come out and finally see one for myself.
Well, we'd be delighted to have you there as our guest.
For those of us, like myself a little bit, who may be unfamiliar with TED Talks, can you give our listeners a quick overview of what TED is and also explain the difference between TED and TEDx?
Well, TED is about spreading big ideas. That has been their tagline for a number of years. And the difference is that TED takes place once a year and is over 2.5 to 3 days. And it incorporates speakers, experiences, and an opportunity to be with an amazing group of people. I stood online. When the doors open, everybody rushes in to find open seating. And in front of me was a CEO of a prominent company, and behind me was an astronaut. So you will meet people online, you meet them everywhere you go, and it's quite an experience. TEDx is TED's way of spreading the word because it costs $12,000 to go to TED. So TEDx are community events that mirror the format of TED. TED stands for Technology, Entertainment, and Design. We always have speakers from all three elements, tech, entertainment, and design, which sort of encompasses everything else. And our event is a half day. So the goal for TEDx is to draw from more local voices. Everyone can't get on the big TED stage.
Right.
So we give the platform to a lot of folks, well-known voices and people who have never been heard of before. And the insights gained from all are the same in terms of sparking new ideas. And that's our goal. We want to spark new ideas, build community, and we draw in Sonoma County from Napa, Sonoma, San Francisco, Silicon Valley. We get people from all over, and we simulcast so people can tune in if they are not local, but the experience is not as exciting as if you're there in person.
Absolutely. And it sounds like there's a real energy or buzz in the room as you were talking about here. Can you tell us a little bit about TEDx Sonoma County's mission and what makes a locally organized event like that different from the global stage?
Our mission is really to bring big ideas, spark thoughtful discussions, and build community here in Sonoma County. We have so many people, so many brilliant big thinkers here, as well as entertainment and folks from the tech world. And you don't have to travel to Vancouver to get this kind of stimulation. It's also a community building event because we have a reception midway through and a reception afterwards. So during our break, we're going to have an experience of the Blue Zone concept because one of our speakers is from the Blue Zones. So we are mirroring Blue Zone experience. We'll have some cooking, we'll have some exercise, we'll have some green things, we'll have some community building activities, all based on the theory around how blue zones enrich your life and create community. And so we'll do that during the break, which is a 20-minute break. And following our event, we have a reception and the activities will continue there.
Very cool. Now, what was the original spark that led you to get involved with TEDx Sonoma County and eventually step into the role of executive producer?
Well, I'll tell you, Alo, what happened for me is that my role in my day job was keeping me commuting to Silicon Valley, San Francisco, East Bay, et cetera, all around the general area. And so I was not feeling as connected to Sonoma County. And when I heard that we had a TEDx, I started as a volunteer and said, at least this is a way for me to connect with like-minded individuals, people who want to hear something interesting, people who want difference and appreciate new ideas and provocative new ideas sometimes, but new ideas. And so I started as a volunteer, and the person who had been producing for the first 6 years, I think it is, decided that she needed to step away because of family commitments. And the head of the school, Sonoma Country Day, where we host our event, and the host and the people who launched TEDx contacted me and said, given my background, I ran Watermark, the organization Watermark, which put on the California Conference for Women for a number of years for 7,000 plus people each year. And so I did that and about 50 events a year as CEO of Watermark. And they said, given your background, would you be willing to take on being our producer and director of the event? And ultimately, I then became the license holder as well. And
Very cool.
it's a labor of love. I meet the best people. Our speakers are amazing, and I wouldn't have gotten to meet them otherwise. And I've developed a tremendous community here in Sonoma County and become good friends with some of the committee members.
And I can imagine no day is the same, and which is a little different than commuting back and forth every day on one path.
Absolutely.
Now, was there a moment, a single talk, a speaker, or audience reaction that made you realize this work truly mattered to you personally?
Yes, I will tell you, there are many, I will say, and I'll give you one example. We had a speaker, Carissa Cruz is her name, and she talked about drink the good stuff now. She happens to represent Sonoma wine growers.
Mm.
And she shared a story about how she and her fiance at the time, now her husband, this is a few years ago, were having dinner on a Tuesday night with supermarket sushi. And he brought over a really good bottle of wine. And her response was, well, this is silly. We should save that because we're having supermarket sushi tonight. Let's wait until we have, a nicer meal. And he said, no, I brought it. Let's just drink it. And so they did, and they went to sleep that night, and in the middle of the night escaped through flames in the Tubbs fire. Everything in her house was obliterated. Her wine cellar, her everything but the clothes on her back. And so what she recognized was that even though she's the type of person who likes to save things for a special occasion, not just wine, but a new outfit or purse or whatever, it's important to drink the good stuff now.
There's no time like the present or drink the good stuff now. I really like that.
And the personal connection is my husband. Well, I've heard from many, many people that the talk impacted them, but I will tell you the personal connection for me is my husband is a drummer professionally. He has a studio in the house, and then always kept a drum kit in the garage that he would take to gigs. After this talk, he said, I'm going to drink the good stuff now. Why have my best custom made, beautiful, big drum kit in my studio where no one sees it and I just get to rehearse on it? Why not use that as my drum set for gigs?
Right.
What am I saving it for? And that was his thing. Why am I saving the good set and using an older, less exciting to play on kit? So he said, I'm going to drink the good stuff now. I'm using the good kit. And I thought a change like that, and he comes to all TEDx's, of course, with me as an audience member. But those kinds of changes are quite profound and they come from a small talk.
Yes. And it's amazing where those seeds are planted and how they bloom.
Exactly.
So, as
Just
executive
one.
producer, you're deeply involved with the curation of the speakers. How do you and your curation team choose the speakers? Is there a specific X factor you look for when reviewing candidates, or what's your method behind your madness?
We don't really have a secret sauce or a special method. What we do is build the program looking at applicants online, and we get probably over 200 every year. And we get recommendations from our past speakers. For example, Guy Kawasaki was a speaker 2 years ago. He has a podcast called Remarkable People, and he interviews extraordinary people during this podcast. So, as a former speaker, he typically will say, I've got a good one for you. Or, is there anyone on my remarkable podcast list that you would like? And so, over the last few years, he's been a referral source, and that's just one. All of our speakers tend to give us referrals because they all have different networks and are connected in a variety of ways. Guy is from the tech world. He was the marketing lead for Apple for many years with Steve Jobs. We have a physician, a local physician who has a wonderful podcast, and he's recommended people. Everyone recommends people. So then what the committee does is go through, we ask for a speaker video and a bio and what one paragraph about what you'd like to talk to. And we go through every one of them. Now, I will say of the over 200 online applicants, I filter out anyone who's not local because we get applicants from as far as New Zealand
Oh, wow.
or Europe, and we got a lot of them this year. And I just send them back a thank you for considering us, but in keeping with the TEDx tradition, we're showcasing local folks.
Right.
So
That makes a lot of
we
sense.
might have someone fly in from LA or someone who has a connection to Sonoma County, but may have moved to another location. We might have them, but they always have a connection to Sonoma County.
Right. They have to be rooted here, which makes sense for this local talk and these local people you're trying to feature.
Right. And then we start building. I already have three speakers fairly committed for next year, but we'll start there and then we look at tech, entertainment, and design, as Ted says. We also look at those speakers who will connect with humor, with heart, and with head. And we want to mix those up. And as a former inclusion leader, I always like to have a diverse team too.
And you also have this famous tagline for TED, ideas worth spreading. So, as a
Absolutely.
curator, how do you personally define what makes an idea worth it? And does that play into your process at all? I'm sure it does in some way, shape, or form.
Absolutely. TED also has some guidelines, so no personal coaches. So we get
Okay.
a lot of applicants who are their personal coach, they want to share their story, or a lot of people who are in wonderful organizations like AA or NA or similar, and they want to share their recovery story. That's not part of the TED experience. And so we always look at what is their big idea, how will it contribute to our theme and the overall program. And we typically start with some entertainment because it is exciting for the crowd as they're coming in. We have them entertaining, and then that's typically our first performer is actually a performer, not a speaker. But we always have at least one or two, and we've had the Gay Men's Choir from San
Oh,
Francisco.
very cool.
We've had a dance troupe last year with 50 dancers of ranging from under 10 to 80 something with an individual performance. I mean, so we always start with something that's both entertaining and gets the crowd involved.
And now, how do you ensure a diverse range of perspectives are represented? I'm sure that's a little tricky to find that balance.
It is. If once we agree a speaker is right for our program and sign them up, that's the first tranche of speakers. then we want to add to it and add something that might be a differentiator. Like this year, we have two speakers that really touch on resilience.
Mm,
But resilience is such an important thing for all of us right now because it is such a time of heavy change and discord. So being resilient is critical. So we have two speakers, but they approach their talks are not named resilient, but they approach it from different perspectives. Every additional speaker has to be additive to the entire program. And then I work with each speaker until their talk is refined and finished. And then they meet with a presentation speaker coach who will help them give the talk of their life on the red dot. And we even have someone who's a movement coach who helps you be comfortable in your body on stage. So we give a lot of support to each of these speakers, but I ensure at the start that their talk is on point, that they leave the audience with something to think about, maybe not as a do these three things, maybe just as an inspiring story. It varies. That's basically our process, and we have a great curation team.
Well, it sounds like you're certainly a well-oiled machine by this point in time. I mean, you've likely seen hundreds of pitches over the years. What's the most surprising thing you've learned about the power of perspective while curating this year's speaker lineup?
What's interesting, what a new piece to one of our speakers' talks, and I'm not going to give away who, but one of our speakers talks about the more you grow in fame in your profession or your career or whatever, whether you're a movie star or on the cover of a magazine, the more you have people trying to tear you down.
Mm,
And how you handle that is really in one of two ways. One, you can become a narcissist, like many leaders around are, because that's a way to only think about what's important to you and take away all the rest of that noise. And the other is not getting a thicker skin, but building a muscle and building the discernment to know who to listen to and who to filter out.
sure.
And I did not think about the fact that we have so many people in power or powerful positions who seem a bit narcissistic. And maybe that was their coping strategy, the leader of a company or someone on the cover of a magazine. And maybe their coping strategy when they started getting more of that hate mail and critical issues from anonymous sources who just want to throw stones at the person who's on stage. Maybe that's why they built up that was their coping mechanism, but there is a much healthier way to do it. And
Right.
so that's not something I thought about in terms of our theme, but it absolutely fits because all of us have voices we need to filter out for different reasons.
So was that part of what maybe inspired this year's theme, Mindshift, Power of Perspective, or was there anything in specific otherwise that had inspiration?
We hold salons throughout the year, little small mini sessions, and we hold one each year before we select our theme. And we ask for people who have attended and people who have been involved as a volunteer or just they go to TEDx every year. They come to the salon and they tell us what they want to hear and tell us who they want to hear from. So they said they wanted athletes. We hadn't had athletes before this year. We have two. And world champion athletes. So we're really excited about that. They also share what's on their minds and what would be helpful for a theme. We felt that with social media, with news in the old days when everyone could trust Walter Cronkite on the news, it was easy to know that what you saw on TV was going to be something that would lead you in the right direction. We're now in an age of you hear absolutely contradicting reports of something on the news, on the so-called news. You also get bombarded with social media, and so many people tend to stay in their own bubble. And there's all that reality TV also. And is it real or is it not real? So we thought, what if we had top influencer on one of the platforms, someone who might have experience with what's real and what isn't real and what's called reality TV
Hmm.
when it's not. And we thought the whole topic needs addressing because so many of us are struggling with who do we talk to? What do we say? Where do we get our information? How do we know what's valid? And how do we know what's someone's opinion, but being presented as though it's a fact? So, how do you sort through all the bombardment of noise that's coming at us in our world that is changing more rapidly with AI and being a more global community? How do you sort through that? How do you know what to do? How do you sift fact from fiction? And we thought that would be a good topic for us to address. So we did.
It's very timely, absolutely. And as we mentioned earlier in our conversation, TEDx events do reflect their local soil. What makes the Sonoma County community uniquely ready for a collective quote unquote mind shift?
I think what's wonderful about Sonoma County is that we do have people who are open-minded here, a lot of open-minded people. Now, you don't have to be of any political persuasion, and TED guidelines are strict about not going into politics, but we want people to be open-minded, and Sonoma County is ripe. As I mentioned before, we always think of Sonoma County as wine country, as agricultural, as a hospitality kind of mentality. But there are so many rich thinkers and inventive ideas coming out of Sonoma County. And people underestimate the intellectual prowess that we have here in the county. So while we want to make it approachable, and our audience can be anyone from teens in school to grandparents, and typically is both. We have multi generations coming to the event with the grandparents, the children, and the grandchildren. We feel like Sonoma County is the right place to have these kinds of open discussions, discussions that are going to spark a new idea. And what I typically hear, often go out to a local restaurant with people who have come up to be at the event that I've invited, and every table will stop me and say, "Oh, my favorite talk was this, and we're still talking about that." And that's what I love hearing, because I think here in Sonoma County, people appreciate that we are more than just an agricultural, but we don't want to lose our agricultural
No,
root.
it's part of our identity, but there, as you said, there is so much more to discover. And that being said, why don't you tell us a little bit about the 2026 lineup? You have voices ranging from an NBA champion foodie to a real estate entrepreneur. What common threads connect their stories, if any? Give us a little bit of a taste.
Okay, so I wouldn't say that Festus, Ezeli, and Mauricio's talks have a common thread, because Festus is going to talk about the lessons learned from playing a team sport
Mhm.
and how that he lives his life the way he was taught in terms of when he was a warrior on the Golden State Warriors. Whereas Mauricio's talk actually is similar in some ways to the theme of Shalina Murata, the motorcyclist and cover girl. What Mauricio and Shalina are bringing out is authenticity, and how
Mhm.
do you stay authentic and true to yourself even when people assume you're someone else. So there's a common theme there. We also have the common theme of navigating this world where change is constant. It's not like, let's deal with this change and you have a curve and it's done. No,
Right.
change is just going to be wave after wave after wave. And how do you manage in that kind of world? So we have a few speakers that deal with that. Matthew Spence and Chuck Fisher and Sonoma Bates are talking about how resilience is so critical, and echoing, Matthew echoes that same theme of how do we remain resilient when there's constant change, when we get annoyed from someone cutting us off on the highway, and we're all a little bit, a friend of mine calls it crispy, we're all a little bit on edge. And so we have a few speakers that are going to touch on what are some things you can do to enjoy your life and not get taken out of your comfort zone or your prime zone, performance zone, if you will, by little upsets. So, how do we cope with them? So, they both, from different angles, talk about this idea. I think of both their talks as resilience. And then we have Rohan Sinha, the high school student, who talks about how to understand what matters in all the noise that's coming in at us. And so we have a few discussions. We have Rohan speaking about that, and we also have Eric McDermott talking about how do you know who to trust in this age of misinformation. So they're both helping us learn mechanisms to sort truth from fiction, as does Mauricio. And they're also talking about this idea that we have to be the filters.
Mhm.
We have to create the guardrails and the filters, or we're just bombarded with things and we don't know what is the one to listen to and what is truth. So, truth versus fiction. So, those are a few of the themes. We also have the author Julie Lithcott-Hames talking about the bonus years, adult children living at home. Again, a trend that because of socioeconomic conditions, we're seeing more and more multi-generational families living in the same household. Children return from school and live back at home because they can't afford to live in a separate house, or they build a small house to accommodate adult children or grandparents for the sandwich generation, because care has changed. And we have a speaker, Lindsay Scola, who talks about, is your tire different? Because in today's environment, so many of us feel like we're running on fumes.
Mhm.
And she had that experience until she found out she actually had a sleep disorder. And one in, I forget the statistics and I don't want to say it wrong, but way more people than we think of have sleep disorders that are keeping us feeling exhausted. It's not that we're doing too much, we may be, but it's that we're also not getting a good night's sleep. And then I mentioned Music to My Ears, a performing group. The students are performing original pieces, and they're local students, so that's exciting. And we have an opportunity with Alyssa DeCaro to get out of our heads and into the groove, because it's going to be audience participation with clapping and other things to say, how can we form one giant orchestra in the audience?
So you'd say that instead of a more formal conference, this is kind of more immersive think tank style for the audience to be a part of the energy then?
Absolutely. There will be a few talks where you just sit and listen, and there might be 7 minutes. Our talks tend to be around 8 to 10 minutes, but they pack a lot in. And I always say you can sell a car in 30 seconds, you can share a big idea in under 10 minutes.
Absolutely.
It's something for everyone. Not everyone will enjoy every speaker, but if they take away a few new thoughts and ideas and they have a great time connecting with people in our community during the break and reception, or in the audience when people ask questions and they have you participate. So it's definitely more participatory. It's an immersion experience.
So for someone attending TEDx Sonoma County for the first time, what might surprise them most about the experience? Is it just that it is an experience, or is there anything else that might surprise them?
I think it will surprise them that we have so many brilliant folks here and only 12 or 13 spots on stage. But amongst them, there are always going to be two or three ideas that stick. That stickiness of an idea and great fodder for your next dinner party or family gathering, because they're wonderful topics that you'll want to discuss with other people. The other thing that I think will surprise people is that it is a community event.
Right.
So you get to see people that you haven't seen I walk around the reception and the break, and I meet people I've known 20 years ago from my time at Cisco, or someone who I haven't seen except last year at Sonoma TEDx. And you start to build relationships with the community of 750 people, because you see them once a year, every year, and you get to talk about new and different ideas. And so I had no idea we had TEDx here before I started volunteering, and I was so thrilled. Like, oh, I've watched TED Talks, I've watched TEDx talks on video, but being in the room and the energy, there's nothing like it. Uh, a friend of mine, actually, an intern of mine, came and brought her husband, and she said he was in a depression with work and just couldn't get out of the funk. And she brought him with her. I treated them to tickets one year. It was the only thing that shifted his life and his
Wow.
perspective on life. And I had no idea that would happen, but she is in LA, but plans to come back every year.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
And when
And
the lights go
um,
down on March 7th, what is the one mind shift you hope the audience carries with them?
to be more resilient and thoughtful about what information makes is relevant and what information is not relevant, either because it's true or not, or because it is not geared to support your own growth. And so I think probably I have to say those two things.
Very cool.
But
Very,
who
very
knows?
powerful.
It'll be
But you don't
different for
know.
someone else.
And I'm sure it's fun to hear the feedback after it all goes down too.
Absolutely.
So as we start to wrap up here, a couple last big picture questions for you, Marilyn. As you look ahead to the next 10, 15, 20 years, what is your vision for TEDx Sonoma County, both inside and beyond the physical theater in Santa Rosa?
Well, I love that we're selling out our theater in Sonoma County. I would love to see us expand our virtual viewing audience and our salons. We just started doing salons 2 years ago. And so, two or three, typically 3 times a year in advance of the event, we'll hold a salon. Typically, one past speaker gives a mini version of their talk, and we invite people to share what they would want to hear and say about next year's event. So I'd say if I look to the future, I hope that our event continues to grow, that we get greater awareness of our event because we, for years, felt like we were a best kept secret. If you didn't know someone who told you about it, you just didn't know that it existed. And so our goal is to spread the word and make sure that all of Sonoma County knows they have access to this content.
Mhm.
And if we outgrow the theater, we'll find another venue because we know this is important for our community and we want to keep it affordable. We know that people are struggling. We never turn anyone away. We have a student rate, a senior rate, but we really just don't turn anyone away who wants to attend because it's too important that the ideas are worth spreading and we want to spread them. So even if it's virtual, one ticket and you have 25 people to your house and have a house party. And we may do more with that so that we bring the content to gatherings, even nursing homes, gatherings of any type, so people don't have the purchase of a ticket as a barrier.
Sure. And in an age where there's so much discourse that happens online, why is it more important than ever to support live intellectual platforms like TEDx?
Because everything at TEDx has to be vetted. We follow very rigorous guidelines from TED. So what you hear, there's no mythology about a new wonder cure by drinking conglomeration of household products is all of a sudden going to make you smarter and lose weight and look 20 years younger. Everything must be vetted. So we vet our speakers very carefully and we vet their content. And so you know that what you hear is tried and true. It may be someone's opinion and you can discard it if you don't like it, but fiction is never presented as fact.
Mhm.
And I think it's just a unique experience. There is nothing like going to a TEDx conference. There's just nothing like it.
So it sounds like people really need to go out and experience it for themselves. So, Marilyn, for those who haven't secured tickets yet, is there anything important to know about the March 7th schedule before they head first online to buy tickets and then to the theater?
Get your tickets early. We plan to sell out. We're about 80, 85 tickets over where we were at this time last year or more.
So the word is spreading.
The word is spreading. Get your tickets before they sell out. And people come early and because it's open seating. So come early, enjoy the theater. The doors open at 1:30 and people rush in to grab their seats. And we have entertainment for them while they're waiting for the show to begin. So plan for a comfortable afternoon. Bring layers. It's Sonoma County. Bring layers. It can be cold or warm in the theater, typically, no matter how much we regulate it. And plan to turn your phone off and just spend the afternoon absorbing and connecting.
Well, it sounds like such a fantastic, unique event to come to Sonoma County. Marilyn, I just want to say thank you so much for appearing on This Must Be the Place. I really enjoyed chatting with you, and I am off to drink some of the good stuff, both in life and in my next segment where I crack one open with local beers.
All right, great, good for you. And I know that about you. Thank you so much, Alo, for having me join you and for spreading the word, helping us spread the word. And I hope to see you at our event.
Absolutely. Take care.
You too. Bye.
The interviews are done, which means I think it's time to crack one open. Interviews make me thirsty, and I want you thirsting for knowledge about some great beer, both local and not so local. Each week, I'll introduce you to a beer I find discussion-worthy and explain the nuances of what makes it fantastic in my eyes and why you should give it a try. And just to keep it on point, I'll even try to make sure the beer reflects the vibe or theme of the episode. Now, as we start to look at February and my flagship February campaign in the rearview mirror, I had to bring attention to a beer that I revisited for the first time in years recently, which is Death and Taxes from Santa Rosa's Moonlight Brewing. This is the beer that built their brewery that they call a San Francisco black lager that is truly dark as night. The other part of this equation is I am very much not a fan of dark lagers. There's something about the combination of roasted malt and a light body that plays tricks on my mind and palate I just don't like. However, revisiting this beer as part of my flagship February pledge, I must say, it was pretty damn good. Now, this beer at 5.3% ABV has a touch more body than other black lagers in recent memory. There's also a pleasantly overwhelming roast nose that's coffee adjacent. They even say in the description that it drinks like an iced coffee, but with a different effect. I think that's pretty true. It's also creamy somehow, which for a lager of this style I wouldn't have expected. This is a beer brewed all the way back in the early 90s to fill a niche of something dark yet light-bodied, and it's almost a cult status beer now that's had staying power for quite some time. For a beer I was hesitant about starting, I'll tell you all this much, I finished it all. Never had Death and Taxes before? Curious also about revisiting the beer? I may have a perfect opportunity for you to do so. I am hosting a beer and cheese pairing event at Moonlight Brewing this Tuesday the 24th as part of SF Beer Week celebrations, and there are still tickets available. Please visit the show notes for the link to purchase tickets if you're interested, and I hope to see some of you out there. It would be great to meet and connect with any of our listeners. Are there beers like this out there that you've been hesitant about before, but ended up enjoying? I'd love to hear your stories if you leave a comment at the end of our podcast. Thanks so much to Marilyn Nagel for appearing on this week's episode. Have a great week, everyone. This Must Be the Place is produced by our friends at Pod Locally, an audio platform helping local voices connect to their communities. Don't forget to like, subscribe, or comment on all your favorite podcast apps, and visit the show notes for more information, links, and resources. Look out for our next drop on Sunday. Until then, I'm your host, Alo Galinsky, saying have a great week.